The water tasted like nebulas looked through a telescope, a swirl of cold fire and distant starlight. One sip, that's all it took to turn a routine survey into an interstellar incident. Before Adam could even register the strangeness coating his tongue, scaled hands clamped onto his arms, yanking him away from the spring. "You have violated the sacred law," a guttural voice hissed, the words vibrating through Adam's bones. Draconis guards, their reptilian eyes narrowed, surrounded him. Their armor, a seamless blend of polished obsidian and what looked like woven starlight, reflected the faint luminescence of the cavern. He'd been exploring a newly discovered Draconis ruin, a place of echoing chambers and intricate carvings that spoke of a civilization both ancient and impossibly advanced. Now he was a prisoner within it. "Sacred law, I just took a drink," Adam protested, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "Ignorance is no excuse," another guard rasped, his grip tightening. "You have drunk from the spring of royal genesis. According to the ancient accordance, you are now bound." Bound? To what? Adam quickly learned the answer as he was dragged before a council of stern-faced Draconis, their scales shimmering in the torchlight. The law, they explained with unwavering gravity, dictated that any non-Draconis who imbibed from the sacred spring was obligated to father children with a Draconis princess. This ensured genetic diversity within the royal line, a practice rooted in their ancient traditions. The Draconis were a technologically advanced reptilian race, their civilization built on a rigid honor code and a profound respect for genetics, law, and tradition. Their society was structured around bloodlines and ancient agreements, a complex web of obligations and responsibilities that seemed utterly alien to Adam's pragmatic worldview. A hush fell over the chamber as Princess Thea entered. Her scales were a deep emerald green, her eyes like molten gold. She moved with a regal grace that belied the barely concealed frustration etched on her face. "The law is immutable," she stated, her voice resonating with a power that sent shivers down Adam's spine. "It cannot be broken. You are now my partner." Thea's words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken resentment. She turned to Adam, her gaze intense. "The spring," she continued, her tone softening slightly, "is believed to be a nexus of psychic energy. Its waters amplify certain traits. This complicates matters further." Adam scoffed, his skepticism overriding his fear. "Psychic energy? With all due respect, Princess, I'm a xenobiologist, not a mystic. I deal in facts, not fairy tales." A Draconis elder, his scales faded with age, stepped forward. His voice, though raspy, carried an undeniable authority. "The law is binding, human. It is not merely a custom, but a sacred covenant, forged in accordance with the celestial alignment. The purity of the royal bloodline must be maintained. It is an ancient agreement with a higher power, and you have now become an unwitting participant." Later, as they stood in a private chamber overlooking the Draconis city, Thea's carefully constructed facade crumbled slightly. "This is not ideal," she admitted, her voice imbued with a hint of weariness. "I desire a more progressive future for my people. A future where ancient laws do not dictate our lives. Perhaps you can be the catalyst for that change." Adam, ever the scientist, was already mentally dissecting the situation. "There has to be a loophole," he muttered, pacing the chamber. "Genetic compatibility, reproductive rights. There's got to be something in your biology that can get me out of this." Even as he spoke, whispers began to circulate among the Draconis court. Adam could sense the unease, the subtle glances, the hushed conversations. Some factions clearly opposed his presence, viewing his union with Thea as a threat to their power, a disruption of the established order. Political intrigue, it seemed, was brewing beneath the surface. Thea sighed, her gaze drifting towards the city lights. "The law was not always about genetics," she revealed, her voice barely audible. "It was initially created to combat a plague, a sickness that threatened to wipe out our royal line, and the spring. It is not just a source of genetic material, it is a place of healing. A place where people came to be renewed, but this has been lost in time and has now become a place for laws to be upheld. She turned back to Adam, her expression unreadable. My people are incapable of lying. It is a fundamental aspect of our biology. We are bound by our words, compelled to follow through. And I, she said, her voice firm despite the undercurrent of frustration, intend to see the Draconis laws upheld. The ambassador's orange face remained impassive. Adam shifted uncomfortably, feeling the weight of the unspoken tension. Before he could formulate a reply, a chime echoed through the suite, announcing an arrival. Ah, Krell said, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. That will be your legal advisor, Mr. Clark, Counselor Vix. The door slid open to reveal a Draconis female, even taller than Thea, with scales the color of polished obsidian. Her eyes, a piercing gold, assessed Adam with clinical detachment. She carried a datapad that seemed fused to her hand. Adam Clark, she stated, her voice a low, resonant hum. I am Vix, designated legal liaison. My purpose is to ensure your adherence to Article 7, subsection Gamma of the Draconis Concordance. Let us begin with the etymological nuances of consanguinity as it pertains to interspecies. Adam held up a hand, wincing. Whoa, slow down. I'm still trying to figure out which fork to use at dinner. Vix tilted her head, her golden eyes narrowing. Forks are obsolete. Nutrient paste is dispensed directly. Such primitive utensils are not germane to legal proceedings. This was going to be a long day. Over the next few days, Adam buried himself in the Draconis legal archives. The datapad Vix provided was a labyrinth of ancient texts and convoluted precedents. He discovered Draconis law wasn't the rigid, unyielding monolith he'd initially assumed. It was a living, breathing thing, shaped by centuries of interpretation, and yes, even loopholes. He found conflicting rulings on interspecies unions, passages that seemed to both condemn and condone his situation. A particularly intriguing case from centuries past involved a human ambassador who'd accidentally ingested a fertility potion, leading to a similar legal quagmire. The ambassador, apparently, had argued his way out of it by citing a technicality regarding the potion's labeling. Hope flickered. The relative quiet of legal research was shattered by Vix, who announced, with the inflexibility of a guided missile, "You are commanded to attend the ceremony of ascendancy. Formal attire is mandatory." The ceremony of ascendancy was a spectacle of Draconis tradition. Adam, clad in a hastily tailored version of Draconis formal, where a shimmering, uncomfortable robe of deep indigo felt like a particularly clumsy impostor. Thea, on the other hand, radiated regal elegance in a gown of emerald scales, her psionic crown gleaming under the cavernous hall's bioluminescent lights. The hall throbbed with the low hum of Draconis voices and the clatter of their scaled feet on the polished obsidian floor. As they entered, a wave of stares followed them. He could feel the weight of their scrutiny, the unspoken disapproval. Then a voice, smooth and tinged with venom, cut through the murmuring. "Ah, Princess Thea," a Draconis male with crimson scales drawled, approaching them. "And you bring the human, how quaint, one wonders if his inferior genetics are truly suitable to strengthen the royal line." He was flanked by several other Draconis, their faces hard and disapproving. This was clearly a coordinated attack. Thea's eyes flashed. "Counselor Andromeden," she replied, her voice Mr. Arp. "Mr. Clark is my guest. Your comments are inappropriate." "Inappropriate?" Andromeden chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "Merely a statement of fact, Princess. Surely you wouldn't deny the limitations of the human genome." Before Adam could react, Thea stepped forward, her voice resonating with authority. "Counselor, Draconis society has always valued strength, Mr. Adaptability. Mr. Clark possesses both in abundance." Furthermore, she paused, her eyes sweeping over the assembled Draconis, "perhaps it is time we re-evaluated our definition of strength." Stagnation is a far greater weakness than genetic diversity. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Thea's words were a subtle but unmistakable challenge to the established order. Adam, surprised and emboldened, decided to press the advantage. "Counselor Andromeda," he said, stepping forward, "I understand your concern about inferior genetics. However, under Earth law, specifically the Geneva Convention, Article 3, subsection C, discrimination based on species is a violation of fundamental rights. While I acknowledge Draconis law differs, the principle of equality remains universal, or at least it should." Several Draconis exchanged surprised glances. Andromeda's crimson face darkened. He clearly hadn't expected the human to fight back, especially not with legal arguments. Later, as they escaped the ceremony's suffocating atmosphere, Thea led Adam to a secluded balcony overlooking the sprawling Draconis city. The bioluminescent structures pulsed with soft light, creating an ethereal glow. "Thank you for defending me back there," Adam said, the alien sky reflecting in his eyes. "That Andromedan character seems like a real piece of work." Thea sighed, her scaled fingers resting on the railing. "Andromedan is influential. He represents the old guard, those who resist any change to our traditions. He sees you as a threat, a symbol of that change." "So, I'm a political pawn," Adam said, a bitter edge to his voice. Thea turned to face him, her silver eyes intense. "You are more than that, Adam, but yes, you are also a catalyst. Draconis society is at a crossroads. We can either cling to the past or embrace a future of progress and understanding. Your presence here forces us to choose. And you're hoping I'll tip the scales in the right direction. I am hoping you will open our eyes," she said softly, "including my own." Thea led Adam away from the city, towards a place she called the Sacred Spring. The air grew cooler as they approached, the scent of ozone and damp earth filling Adam's nostrils. The spring itself was nestled in a grotto, the water shimmering with an otherworldly light. Strange, crystalline formations lined the walls, pulsing with a faint energy. This place, Adam breathed, it feels different. "It is," Thea said, her voice hushed. "The sacred spring is a nexus of psychic energy. It amplifies emotions, fosters connections. It is said that those who drink from it share a bond that transcends species." She gestured to a smooth, flat stone near the spring. "Sit. I will show you." Thea guided Adam through a series of mental exercises, focusing his mind, clearing his thoughts. He felt a strange, tingling sensation, a warmth spreading through his body. Then images began to flicker in his mind, alien landscapes, Draconis faces, and strangely images of Earth, of his childhood home. Then a clear vision, a world where Draconis and humans walked side by side, sharing knowledge, building a future together. The vision faded, leaving Adam breathless. What was that?" he stammered. "A glimpse of possibility," Thea said, her eyes glowing. "The spring shows what could be, what we could become." The beauty of the vision was soon overshadowed by a darker revelation. While delving deeper into the Draconis legal archives, Adam stumbled upon a heavily encrypted file. After hours of decryption, he uncovered a disturbing truth. The sacred spring wasn't just a source of psychic energy, it was also capable of wiping memories. The file contained records of past royal lineages being subtly altered, undesirable traits erased, all in the name of maintaining the ancient agreement, a nebulous concept used to justify political manipulation. He didn't have much time to process this information before a Draconis scientist, his scales a nervous shade of gray, approached him in the guesthouse gardens. He kept glancing over Mr.'s shoulder as he spoke. "Mr. Clark," he whispered, his voice trembling, "you must be careful, Andromedan. He plans to weaponize the spring, to amplify its psychic power for military applications. I overheard them discussing it in the lab, but I cannot speak out, they will kill me." Adam's blood ran cold. "Weaponize the spring? How?" "I cannot say more here," the scientist said, his eyes darting around nervously. But trust me, you are in danger. Princess Thea is in danger." And with that, he scurried away, disappearing into the lush foliage. Adam immediately sought out Thea. Together, they reviewed the information, cross-referencing the scientist's claims with Adam's discovery about the spring's memory-altering capabilities. They found a series of encrypted access logs pointing to a hidden research facility located near the spring. Under the cover of darkness, they made their way to the facility. The entrance was concealed behind a waterfall, the air thick with the hum of machinery. Inside, they found a scene that confirmed their worst fears. Draconis scientists, clad in protective gear, were manipulating the spring's energy, channeling it into a complex array of resonators. The air crackled with psychic energy. "They're trying to amplify it," Thea whispered, her eyes wide with alarm. "To create a weapon of unimaginable power. They had to stop them." Working in perfect synchronicity, Adam and Thea began to sabotage the experiment. Adam, using his knowledge of physics, identified the critical nodes in the resonator array, calculating the precise frequencies needed to destabilize the system. Thea, meanwhile, used her psionic abilities to subtly disrupt the flow of energy, creating feedback loops and overloading circuits. "Now," Adam hissed, inputting a complex sequence of commands into a nearby control panel. The facility shuddered, alarms blared, lights flickered and died. The psychic energy surged uncontrollably, then collapsed in on itself, creating a wave of disruptive force. "We need to go," Thea shouted, grabbing Adam's hand. As they fled the laboratory, a piercing alarm echoed through the facility. They knew they'd been discovered. They burst out of the waterfall entrance and into the moonlit night, only to be met by a squad of Draconis guards, their weapons drawn. "Stop! You are under arrest!" Their leader barked, his scales glinting in the moonlight. Thea and Adam exchanged a look. There was no time to explain. They had to escape. Thea took the lead, unleashing a wave of psychic energy that stunned the guards momentarily. Adam, meanwhile, scanned their surroundings, assessing the environment for weaknesses. He noticed a series of narrow alleyways leading into the city's underbelly. "This way," he shouted, grabbing Thea's hand and pulling her into the darkness. The chase was on. The Draconis guards, their heavy armor clattering on the stone pavement, pursued them relentlessly. Adam, relying on his knowledge of urban environments, led them through a maze of twisting alleyways, utilizing every shadow and crevice to their advantage. He noticed the Draconis guards had difficulty navigating the tight spaces, their bulky armor hindering their movements. He also observed that their vision was optimized for daylight, making them less effective in the darkness. He led them towards a series of drainage tunnels, knowing the Draconis wouldn't be able to follow. They are far too big to fit. As they slid down a muddy embankment into the tunnels, he heard the frustrated roars of the guards above. Finally, they reached a hidden chamber beneath the city, a forgotten sanctuary carved into the bedrock. They collapsed against the damp walls, gasping for breath. Thea looked at Adam, her silver eyes filled with a mixture of exhaustion and admiration. You were incredible back there," she said, her voice hoarse. "I didn't know you could do that." Adam shrugged, a wry smile on his face. "Just a little bit of Earth ingenuity. Turns out knowing how to navigate a crowded city comes in handy, even on an alien planet." Thea reached out and took his hand, her scaled fingers intertwining with his. "We barely made it," she said softly. "They will be searching for us everywhere. We will never be safe alone. We must do this together or we will die alone." Their eyes met, and in that moment, Adam knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Their partnership was no longer just a matter of law or politics. It was a matter of survival. And something more, something deeper, was beginning to bloom between them. The dust settled, revealing the extent of the damage to their hidden chamber. Cracks spiderwebbed across the smooth, obsidian walls, and the air hung thick with the scent of ozone and burnt circuitry. "They knew we were here," Thea stated, her voice tight with controlled fury, her reptilian eyes narrowed. Adam coughed, brushing dust from his clothes. Not just that we were here, but what we were doing. He ran a hand along a shattered console, his brow furrowed. We've been playing defense. That needs to change. Thea nodded, her gaze hardening. They seek to rewrite history, to seize control over the very minds of our people. She paused and then, with a hint of reluctance, explained, there is an ancient agreement. Millennia ago, it was discovered that no single Draconis could safely wield the spring's full potential without oversight. The raw power, it corrupts. The royal lineage was altered through memory modification to ensure compliance. This coup, it threatens to unravel all of that. Frustration simmered within Adam. So they can just rewrite minds en masse. He paced the chamber, his mind already racing. There has to be a way to detect where they are funneling the spring's power, a way to trace it, something like detecting energy signatures. He stopped pacing, his eyes shining with an idea. I can build something, a device that uses principles of quantum entanglement to detect subtle fluctuations in the psionic field. But it will need a psionic amplifier to work. Thea hesitated, her scales shimmering slightly. Such a device would require access to restricted technologies. My royal connections could provide that access, but it would expose me, expose us both. We don't have a choice, Thea, Adam said, his voice firm. Not anymore. Their first stop was the lab of Dr. Arlo, the scientist who had initially warned Adam about the dangers surrounding the sacred spring. They found the lab ransacked, equipment smashed, and data storage devices missing. A chilling silence hung in the air. He's been silenced, Thea whispered, her voice imbued with dread. Adam moved to Arlo's workstation, his eyes scanning the chaos. He noticed a pattern in the destruction. Certain components were deliberately broken, while others were untouched. He left us something, Adam murmured, his fingers tracing a series of seemingly random scratches on a metal panel. These aren't random, it's a cipher. After an hour of painstaking work, Adam cracked the code. The scratches revealed a series of coordinates leading to a hidden library, a repository of forbidden knowledge about the sacred spring. The library was a vast, cavernous space filled with towering shelves laden with ancient scrolls and crystalline data chips. The air was thick with the scent of aged parchment and forgotten secrets. As they delved deeper, they uncovered unsettling truths about the spring's true potential. It's not just about rewriting minds, Adam said, his voice grim. It can destabilize the planet's core. It could destroy everything. Thea's eyes widened in horror. But why would anyone? Then they found it, a prophecy etched into a crumbling stone tablet. It spoke of a human catalyst, an outsider who would either save Draconis society or plunge it into eternal darkness. Adam stared at the tablet, a chill running down his spine. Human catalyst, he muttered. Great, no pressure. Using the information gleaned from the library, Adam and Thea worked tirelessly to refine Adam's detection device. They integrated Draconis technology, amplifying its sensitivity and precision. The device hummed with scarcely controlled energy, a testament to their combined ingenuity. When Adam finally tested the device, it worked. A faint but distinct energy signature pulsed on the screen. Got them, Adam said, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. They're definitely weaponizing the spring. But their success didn't go unnoticed. Subtle signs of increased surveillance began to appear. Whispers followed them in the corridors, and unfamiliar guards watched their every move. The rival faction knew they were onto them. Thea was summoned to a private meeting with her family and advisors. They urged her to distance herself from Adam, painting him as a dangerous influence. He is an outsider, Thea, her mother said, her voice filled with concern. He does not understand our ways. He is a threat to our traditions. Thea stood her ground, her voice unwavering. Adam is not a threat. He is trying to help us. He is the only one who can stop them. Later that night, Adam and Thea met in secret. The pressure was mounting, the danger closing in. They're trying to isolate us, Adam said, his voice low. They're trying to break us apart. Thea reached out and took his hand, her scales cool against his skin. They will not succeed, she said, her eyes filled with drive. She hesitated and then in a voice barely above a whisper said, I care for you, Adam. More than I thought possible. Adam squeezed her hand, his heart pounding in his chest. I care for you too, Thea. With the net closing in, Adam and Thea decided to use the upcoming Draconis Unity Festival as cover to infiltrate the rival faction's headquarters. They donned traditional Draconis attire, blending seamlessly into the crowd. Their knowledge of Draconis customs and etiquette allowed them to navigate the festival with ease, gathering intelligence and avoiding suspicion. Deep beneath the festival grounds they found it, the psychic amplifier. It was a massive, pulsating device, humming with raw, untamed power. Crystalline conduits snaked across the walls, channeling the spring's energy into the amplifier's core. This is it, Adam said, his voice barely audible above the hum of the machine. This is how they're going to rewrite minds. Adam moved to sabotage the amplifier, but before he could reach it, he was surrounded by guards. A fierce struggle ensued, but Adam was outnumbered and overpowered. He was captured. Thea watched in horror as Adam was dragged away, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she had a choice to make: rescue Adam or stop the rival faction's plot. Her advisors urged her to focus on the mission, to sacrifice Adam for the greater good. But Thea couldn't do it. She trusted Adam. She knew that he was the key to stopping the amplifier. Against her guard's advice, Thea made her decision. I will rescue Adam, she declared, her voice ringing with authority. He is more important than anything. Thea, relying on her combat skills and psionic abilities, fought her way through the rival faction's forces, her determination fueled by her love for Adam. She found him locked in a cell, battered but defiant. Thea, Adam said, his voice hoarse. You shouldn't have come. I had to, Thea replied, her eyes shining with tears. As they escaped, alarms blared throughout the facility. The rival faction activated the psychic amplifier. A wave of psychic energy washed over the city, causing widespread chaos and psychic disturbances. People screamed, clutching their heads in agony. The population was vulnerable to manipulation. Adam and Thea, reunited, stared at the amplifier, its power growing exponentially. It's too late, Adam said, his voice filled with despair. We can't stop it. Thea shook her head, her eyes blazing with willpower. There is one way, she said, her voice trembling. We can use our combined psychic energies to counteract the amplifier's power, but it will require us to fully trust each other, to embrace our unique connection. The air in the hidden chamber crackled with unspoken tension. So, Thea began, her voice betraying a hint of the unease Adam felt mirrored within himself. We begin. Their first attempts at synchronizing their psychic energies were clumsy. Adam, accustomed to the precise measurements of xenobiology, approached it like a lab experiment. He tried to visualize the flow of energy between them, charting its ebbs and flows in his mind, but the psionic realm refused to be neatly quantified. Thea, on the other hand, relied on instinct, drawing on centuries of Draconis tradition. She closed her eyes, her scales shimmering faintly in the dim light, and attempted to simply feel the connection. It's like trying to mix oil and water, Adam muttered after an hour of fruitless effort. We need a more systematic approach, something we can measure. Thea opened her eyes, a flicker of irritation crossing her features. Measure? You cannot measure the soul, Adam. Maybe not the soul, he conceded, but perhaps the energy it generates. If we could quantify the psychic link, we could learn to control it. He spent the next day scavenging parts from his damaged equipment, jury-rigging a device that resembled a cross between a bioscanner and a Draconis meditation helm. It was crude, but it would have to do. He called it the resonance monitor. Thea, initially skeptical, humored him. She donned the helm, its wires brushing against her scales, and focused her mind on Adam. The resonance monitor flickered to life, displaying a chaotic jumble of data. Adam began tweaking the settings, filtering the noise until a faint, rhythmic pattern emerged. "There," he said, pointing to the screen. "That's us, or at least the measurable interaction between us." Thea adapted Adam's methods, blending them with her own meditation techniques. She taught him to focus not on the data, but on the feeling behind it, the subtle vibrations that resonated between them. Slowly, painstakingly, their synchronization improved. The chaotic jumble on the resonance monitor began to coalesce into a more coherent pattern. During one particularly intense session, a jolt of energy surged through them both. The chamber vanished, replaced by a swirling vortex of colors and sensations. Then, images flooded their minds. The rival faction, gathered around a massive, pulsating device, an amplifier of some kind. They saw the amplifier's intended targets, key Draconis settlements, their populations ripe for manipulation. They saw the scale of their ambition, nothing less than total control of Draconis society. The vision ended as abruptly as it began, leaving them gasping for breath, their minds reeling. "They plan to use it to control us all," Thea said, her voice trembling with rage. Adam, ever pragmatic, focused on the details of the vision. "The amplifier. I saw its energy frequency. It's unstable. There's a potential weakness in the design, a point of sabotage." Thea, recovering her regal composure, nodded. "We need schematics. I can access them, but—" Her voice trailed off. The schematics were classified, heavily guarded. Loyalists to the old regime would resist her efforts. She used her royal authority to request the amplifier schematics, but the request was met with bureaucratic delays and thinly veiled hostility. Finally, a high-ranking official, a known supporter of the rival faction, presented her with a datapad. "Your Highness," he said, his voice dripping with false respect, "I trust these are the documents you require." Thea took the datapad, her eyes narrowed. The schematics were a mess of technical jargon and complex diagrams. She turned to Adam, her frustration evident. "I understand the principles, the overarching goals, but this is beyond me." Adam took the datapad, his eyes scanning the schematics. "The focusing array. It's powered by a rare crystal, a Kyvorian shard. It's what amplifies the psychic energy. Kyvorian shards are only found in the Whispering Caves," Thea said, her voice grim. "A remote and dangerous region. Few dare venture there." "Then that's where we're going," Adam said, his voice firm. The journey to the Whispering Caves was fraught with peril. The landscape was a desolate expanse of jagged rocks and windswept canyons, teeming with wild Draconis creatures, razor-clawed predators, and venomous vipers. They faced sandstorms that threatened to bury them alive and sheer cliffs that tested their climbing skills. But through it all, their teamwork grew stronger. Thea's knowledge of the terrain and her combat skills complemented Adam's ingenuity and his ability to analyze and overcome obstacles. As they neared the caves, Thea grew quiet, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "My mother used to bring me here," she said softly. "She said the caves held a special energy, a connection to our ancestors." A rare vulnerability flickered in her eyes. "She died when I was young. These caves, they're one of the few places where I still feel close to her." Inside the caves, the air hummed with an almost palpable energy. They found the Kyvorian shard nestled in a crystalline formation, pulsing with a soft, ethereal light. As Thea reached for it, a voice echoed through the caves. "So, the princess has come to play in the dirt." The rival faction emerged from the shadows, their weapons drawn. An ambush. A fierce battle erupted. Thea, wielding her ancestral blade, fought with the fury of a cornered dragon. But the rival faction was numerous and well-equipped. Seeing Thea overwhelmed, Adam knew he had to act. He grabbed a handful of loose crystals and hurled them at the attackers, creating a blinding flash of light and a deafening roar. The diversion worked. Thea, seizing the opportunity, grabbed the Kyvorian shard and fled deeper into the caves. Adam, however, was cut off. He found himself surrounded, outnumbered. He activated the emergency beacon on his suit, hoping someone would find him eventually. He wouldn't go down without a fight, but his chances weren't good. Thea, having escaped the ambush, regrouped with Adam at their hidden chamber. They returned to their hidden chamber, exhausted but alive. The Kyvorian shard pulsed with energy in Thea's hand. "Now what?" Thea asked, her voice tight with concern. "Now," Adam said, "we figure out how to use this thing against them." They spent hours analyzing the crystal, charting its energy patterns and devising a plan. But their respite was short-lived. The rival faction, enraged by their failure, launched a direct assault on the hidden chamber. Explosions rocked the mountain. The walls trembled. The chamber was breached. Adam and Thea were separated in the chaos. Adam, relying on his instincts, navigated the labyrinthine tunnels, dodging laser fire and collapsing debris. Thea, however, was not so lucky. She was cornered by a group of soldiers and, despite her valiant resistance, was eventually subdued and captured. Adam, reaching a vantage point, saw Thea being dragged away. His heart clenched. He had a choice to make: rescue Thea or sabotage the amplifier. He couldn't do both. The rival faction contacted Adam, their leader's face appearing on a comm screen. "Surrender the Kyvorian shard, human, and we will spare the princess." Adam stared at the screen, his lips pursed. He knew what they wanted. They wanted to control him, to use him as a pawn. But he also knew that Thea's life was on the line. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and made his decision. "I will not surrender the crystal," he said, his voice resolute. "I trust in Thea's strength, and I trust in my own ability to stop you." The rival faction leader's face twisted with fury. "Foolish human, you have condemned her." He smacked his head on a console. "Activate the amplifier." A wave of psychic energy washed over Draconis. People screamed. Minds shattered. Chaos reigned. The amplifier was unleashed. Adam hit the release, the floor panel snapping open beneath his feet. He plunged into the darkness, the metallic tang of the hidden chamber filling his nostrils. Above, the screams intensified, punctuated by the low hum of the amplifier. He had to move, and fast. Emerging into a dimly lit corridor, he risked a glance back through a grated vent. The scene was horrifying. Draconis citizens, their eyes glazed over, moved with jerky, unnatural movements. Some were convulsing, their scales shimmering erratically. The amplifier's insidious influence was twisting them, body and mind. A cold determination settled in his gut. He wouldn't let this stand. He knew the layout of this section from the schematics Thea had shown him. Emergency exits were few, but he knew of one that would lead him closer to the enemy faction's headquarters. He moved swiftly, keeping to the shadows, his human physiology granting him a nimbleness the Draconis guards lacked. Reaching a supply depot, Adam spotted a discarded Draconis soldier's uniform. A risky gamble, but necessary. He quickly stripped off his own jumpsuit and donned the ill-fitting armor. The helmet obscured his face, and he lowered his posture, mimicking the stiff gait of the Draconis military. He even managed a passable, though heavily accented, Draconis greeting when a patrol passed. They didn't give him a second glance. Thea's lessons had paid off. He navigated the corridors, his senses on high alert. The air grew thick with a palpable psychic energy, a suffocating blanket that pressed against his mind. He found the headquarters and saw how the faction was using the amplifier. He passed a holding cell and overheard hushed voices speaking in Draconis. He reached the central command chamber and saw him, General Vorlag, the leader of the rival faction. Vorlag was a formidable figure, his scarred face a mask of bitterness. He was ranting about the royal family. Adam activated the translator in his ear. "They took everything from me. My family, my honor, my future. They will pay for their arrogance. This amplifier will bring them to their knees." Adam's heart sank. This wasn't just about power, it was about revenge, fueled by a deep personal tragedy. He continued deeper into the complex, and he saw the true horror of the amplifier. The device pulsed with an unholy light, connected to a network of tubes that snaked throughout the facility. He saw Draconis citizens hooked up to these tubes, their life force visibly draining away, feeding the amplifier's insatiable hunger. It wasn't just controlling minds, it was stealing lives. Meanwhile, in a darkened cell, Thea fought against the encroaching mental fog. The amplifier's influence was a relentless tide, threatening to drown her consciousness. But she was a Draconis princess, her mind honed by years of psionic training. She focused on Adam, on their shared connection, on the hope he represented. She would not break. She would gather intelligence. She listened to the guards, piecing together the faction's plans. She heard their plan, to use the amplifier's full power to launch a devastating psionic attack directly at the Draconis royal family during the upcoming Unity ceremony, effectively seizing control of the throne. The attack would be disguised as a mass hysteria event, making it impossible to trace back to the faction. Adam knew he had to warn Thea. He closed his eyes, focusing his mind, reaching out across the psychic static. The amplifier fought him, its chaotic energy a wall of interference. He pushed harder, drawing on their shared experience at the spring, on the bond that connected them. A flicker of recognition, a surge of hope. Thea's voice, faint but clear, echoed in his mind. "Adam, is that you?" "Thea, they're planning an attack on the royal family. The amplifier is draining their life force. I know it's difficult to resist, the weakness. It's in the power source. A disruption will weaken its control. They plan to launch a full-scale psionic assault at the Unity ceremony." The connection flickered, threatened by the amplifier's relentless intrusion. "I'll do what I can," Adam managed to transmit before the link was severed, leaving him alone in the oppressive darkness. He had to act. He located the amplifier's power source, a massive crystal pulsating with stolen life energy. It was heavily guarded, but Adam had an idea. He remembered the schematics of the facility's power grid. He rerouted the power flow, creating a surge that overloaded the crystal, causing a temporary disruption in the amplifier's energy field. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and the mental pressure in the air lessened perceptibly. In her cell, Thea seized the opportunity. The amplifier's influence wavered, and she broke free from her mental restraints. She unleashed a wave of psionic energy, shattering the cell door and freeing the other prisoners. For the royal family, for Draconis, she cried, rallying them to her cause. A full-scale rebellion erupted within the faction's headquarters. Adam fought his way through the chaos, his stolen uniform providing limited protection. He spotted Thea, leading the charge, her eyes blazing with purpose. "Adam," she cried, and he knew she could sense his presence. They met in the central corridor, their reunion a brief moment of hope amidst the carnage. "We have to stop the amplifier," Thea said, her voice strained. "I know, I have a plan." Adam gestured towards a nearby workshop. "I need some parts." While Thea held off the advancing guards, Adam scavenged components from the workshop. He worked quickly, his mind racing, drawing on his knowledge of psionic energy and makeshift technology. He fashioned a device, a crude but functional counter-amplifier that could generate a localized shield against the faction's mind control. Thea fought with the ferocity of a cornered dragon, her psionic abilities devastating against the enemy soldiers. But Vorlag was approaching, his eyes burning with hatred. He engaged Thea in a psionic battle, their minds clashing in a storm of energy. The corridor shimmered with raw power and the air crackled with psychic force. Adam finished his device. It was bulky and jury-rigged, but it would have to do. He activated it, and a shimmering bubble of energy expanded outwards, pushing back the amplifier's influence. He saw the glazed eyes of the nearby Draconis soldiers clear, their minds returning to them. But Vorlag was one step ahead. "You may have disrupted my control," he snarled, his voice echoing in Thea's mind, "but you're too late. I've initiated the overload sequence. In moments, this entire region will be consumed in a psionic inferno." Adam saw the flashing lights on the amplifier, the rising energy levels. He's going to overload it. We have to stop him. Thea struggled against Vorlag's relentless psionic assault, but she was weakening. Adam knew they were running out of time. He raced towards the amplifier, dodging energy blasts and fallen debris. He reached the overload mechanism, a complex array of crystals and conduits. He needed to disable it, but one wrong move could trigger the explosion. As he worked, a stray energy blast struck him, searing his arm. He cried out in pain, his vision blurring. He could feel the heat of the amplifier building, the countdown timer ticking relentlessly. Thea saw Adam fall, his face contorted in pain. She had a choice to make: save him or stop the amplifier. The fate of the Draconis civilization hung in the balance, but there was no choice. She couldn't lose him. With a surge of psionic energy, she broke free from Vorlag's grasp. Ignoring the searing pain in her head, she channeled her power into Adam, shielding him from the impending explosion. At the same time, she teleported them both away from the amplifier to the other side of the facility. The amplifier overloaded. The world dissolved in a blinding flash of white light, followed by a deafening roar. The very air seemed to crackle and tear apart. Then, silence. The fate of the Draconis civilization was uncertain, but Adam and Thea were alive, safe for now. They lay huddled together, their bodies bruised and battered, but their spirits unbroken. The final confrontation was coming. The world swam back into focus, a chaotic tableau of shattered crystal and twisted metal. The air crackled with residual energy, a ghostly echo of the amplifier's power. Thea lay beside him, her emerald scales dusted with debris, her breathing ragged. Adam. She rasped, her voice strained. "I'm here," he replied, pushing himself up, wincing as pain shot through his arm. The teleport had been rough, depositing them amidst the ruins of what had once been a magnificent plaza. The amplifier was gone, but its destruction was absolute. The gravity of the situation crashed down on him. They had to help. Without a word, they moved, driven by instinct and a shared sense of responsibility. Adam, drawing on his knowledge of structural engineering, began assessing the stability of the remaining structures, calling out warnings to anyone who might be trapped within. Thea, her eyes glowing with psionic energy, reached out with her mind, searching for survivors beyond the reach of physical senses. Her face was a mask of concentration, her brow furrowed as she strained to hear the faint cries for help amidst the chaos. The Draconis people, initially stunned and overwhelmed by the devastation, began to rally. Thea's presence, her unwavering strength, was a beacon of hope. Her voice, amplified by a salvaged comm unit, resonated through the ruins. "We have endured worse. We will rebuild. We will heal." Her words, imbued with psionic energy, instilled courage and drive in her people. As the rescue efforts intensified, Adam noticed a disturbing trend. Many of the Draconis were acting erratically, their movements jerky, their eyes wide with a manic gleam. He pulled Thea aside, his voice urgent. "The amplifier. It's left a residual field, a localized distortion. It's amplifying psionic abilities, but it's also causing mental instability." Thea closed her eyes, focusing her psionic senses. "You're right, it's chaotic, like a storm in their minds." They needed a solution, and fast. Suddenly, Thea gasped, her eyes snapping open. "I see them, the remaining faction leaders. They've retreated to a hidden bunker deep beneath the city." Her voice was tight with anger. "They're planning something. We have to stop them," Adam said, his lips pursed. Together, they assembled a strike team of the most level-headed Draconis warriors, those least affected by the distortion field. They moved swiftly through the ruined city, guided by Thea's psionic senses. As they approached the bunker, they encountered Resistance faction loyalists, their minds still warped by the amplifier's lingering influence. Adam, remembering a discarded piece of Draconis tech he'd scavenged earlier, began tinkering furiously. "I think I can adapt this," he muttered, his fingers flying across the device. "Create a localized dampening field." It won't reverse the damage, but it should neutralize the amplifier's influence. With a final adjustment, he activated the device. A wave of energy pulsed outwards, washing over the loyalists. Their erratic movements ceased, their eyes cleared, and the manic gleam faded. Confusion replaced the fanaticism. They were free. Thea led the charge into the bunker, her psionic blade humming with power. She moved with grace and precision, disarming and subduing the remaining guards. Finally, she stood before the lead conspirator, a wizened old draconis with eyes that burned with fanaticism. "Thea," the conspirator hissed, his voice filled with venom. "You cannot stop what is inevitable, the mind link. It is the key. We will control it. We will control all species." Control. Thea's voice was filled with sadness. "Is that all you seek? Control through fear and subjugation?" The conspirator lunged, his mind a whirlwind of chaotic energy. Thea met his attack with a shield of pure psionic force. The battle raged, a clash of minds that shook the very foundations of the bunker. Adam, watching from the sidelines, knew he had to do something. He adjusted his dampening device, focusing its energy on Thea, amplifying her control and shielding her from the chaotic feedback. With a final surge of power, Thea shattered the conspirator's mental defenses. She saw his motives, his fears, his misguided belief that control was the only way to ensure survival. And in that moment, she felt not hatred, but compassion. She disarmed him not with force, but with understanding. As the conspirator was taken away, defeated and subdued, Adam felt a strange pull, a resonance emanating from the heart of the city. He turned to Thea, his eyes wide. "The sacred spring. It's reacting, it's the key." "The key to what?" Thea asked, her brow furrowed. "To stabilizing the distortion field," Adam replied, his voice filled with excitement. "To neutralizing the amplifier's long-term effects, and I think it can be used on any species, not just Draconis." Together, they raced to the sacred spring, a place of ancient power and profound mystery. The water shimmered with an ethereal glow, pulsating with untapped energy. Adam, guided by his scientific understanding, and Thea, drawing on her psionic abilities, worked in perfect harmony. They channeled the spring's energy, creating a harmonious resonance that spread outwards, washing over the land, soothing the minds of the Draconis people, and restoring balance to the world. The effects were immediate and profound. The distortion field dissipated, the mental instability vanished, and a sense of peace settled over the city. The Draconis people, healed and restored, looked to Thea and Adam with gratitude and respect. The Draconis Council, witnessing their selfless actions and the positive impact of their union, could no longer deny the truth. They officially recognized their bond and repealed the outdated laws, acknowledging the dawn of a new era. Thea, standing before her people, her voice filled with hope, announced her plans for the future. "We will rebuild not just our city, but our society. We will embrace cooperation, understanding, and diversity. I invite human scientists and ambassadors to share their knowledge and build a better future together." Time passed. The city was rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful than before. The distortion field was gone, replaced by a sense of harmony and balance. The Draconis people embraced their human allies, learning from their ingenuity and sharing their psionic wisdom. One evening, as they stood together in the gardens overlooking the city, Thea turned to Adam, her eyes sparkling with love. "There is something I must tell you." She placed his hand on her abdomen. "Our child, their psionic abilities are already manifesting. They are creating a unique connection between us." Adam's heart swelled with emotion. He looked at Thea, his eyes filled with love and wonder. He had come to this world as a scientist, an outsider. Now he was a partner, a leader, a father. He had found his purpose, his home, his family. The story concludes with Adam and Thea standing together, holding their newborn child, looking towards a hopeful future filled with unity, understanding, and endless possibilities. The child, a symbol of their love and the union between two species, radiated a gentle psionic energy, a promise of a brighter tomorrow. The water tasted like starlight, and the future tasted even sweeter.